Hi there, welcome back to the Floranella channel. I'm Erin and I'm a clinical herbalist and aromatherapist. Today I wanted to try something a little bit different, something new here on the channel. So I'm filming a little bit more of a casual video. I'm hoping to do very minimal, if any, editing on this video. And I just wanted to sit down and talk to you guys and answer some of your questions. And if you guys like this type of video, maybe I'll make more of them in the coming weeks or coming months for this year. We'll see how it goes. But I did ask you guys to send in some questions and I got quite a few, so I'm going to answer a few of them today. The first question is from Linda and it has 3 different parts. Linda asks, what is the best resource for converting grams to ounces, etc. when you're formulating? I just use Google. So if you type grams to ounces in Google, it brings up a calculator right there on your screen, and I always just use that. It's quick and easy, so that's what I recommend doing. Do you have a recommended reading list for herbs and aromatherapy, not just for the Americas? She also asks. I do have recommended reading lists for herbalism and aromatherapy. I took them down off of my blog so that I could update them, and they're about to be put back up. So this month, you'll see both of those go live on the blog again, and you can find that at floranella.com/books. So when you go to, or you can go to the Floranella website and hover over articles. And when you do that, a drop down menu with the different categories of the types of blog posts I typically publish on there shows up, and you can click on books and it will show up there. If you're on my email newsletter list, you'll also get an email when that article is published. It should be in the next couple of weeks, if not the week this goes up. As far as books not just for the Americas go, most of the books that I have on that list were published in the US. I don't read in other languages very well, so I tend to recommend books written in English because that's my first language, and the books that are published here in the US are the ones I am generally more familiar with. I have a couple of books in French and a couple of books published elsewhere, but they're not readily available here, so I tend not to put them on my lists as much. So sorry about that. If any of you who are watching this can recommend herbal or aromatherapy books that are available or were published in other parts of the world, feel free to share those in the comments on this video. The last question Linda had was, do you follow the lunar planting cycle for your gardening? And the answer to that is sometimes, but not consistently. I'm not religious about it. If I need to plant something when I'm not in alignment with the lunar cycles, I'll go ahead and do it, but it is nice when you can align things like that. Okay, our next question comes from Patty, and she says, should you wash your herbs before drying them? And how long do most dried herbs last? This is a really great question, or 2 questions really. The first one, should you wash your herbs before drying them? That depends on where you live and where you're growing your herbs. So a lot of people generally tend to recommend that you not wash herbs before drying them because you're then introducing extra moisture into the process. You're washing away some of the volatile oils that are just going to inevitably end up being washed off of the leaves of your plants when you do that. And if you live in a very pristine area that doesn't have a lot of air pollution, you're not really near a road, you're not growing your herbs right next to the road or anything, you might be able to get away with that. A lot of farms don't wash their herbs before drying them. In my case, I live in an urban neighborhood and my garden is right up against a street where people drive. And I also live in an area with really heavy pollution. So I wash my herbs. We deal with wildfires. We have a lot of factories where I live, and there's just a lot of pollution in the air pretty much all the time. So I have to wash mine. In fact, one time I was harvesting hawthorn berries and cleaning those, and I noticed that I was just getting a black coating on my hands whilst just sorting through them. And I was really glad that I ended up washing those. So I wash mine before drying them because of where I'm growing herbs. But if you live, out in the boonies somewhere, then you might be able to get away with not washing them. As far as how long most dried herbs last, that really depends on the herb and how you're storing it. So if you're storing it in an airtight container, in the dark, in a cool place, then that generally helps prolong the shelf life of your herb. Some herbs, though, lose their potency really quickly once they're dried. So think of the things that have really citrusy aromas. So lemongrass, lemon verbena, or lemon balm and lemon verbena, those two in particular, tend to lose their aroma within about 6 months, if not sooner, after drying, depending on how they're stored. But other herbs like spices can last a lot longer. So the way to tell if your dried herbs are still good is to look at them, see if they're still really vibrant and colorful, or if they've lost a lot of their color and become more dull. Smell them, taste them. If you can still smell and taste that signature flavor of that herb, then it might still be fine. If not, you might want to replace it. Okay, the next question is from Lori, and she asks, how do you cut dried lemongrass stalks for tea? Are there special tools needed? I'm having a hard time. Thank you. So if the stalks are already dried, it's probably going to be a little bit harder. Things that are really woody or things that are just harder to chop once they're dried, I tend to process before drying. So I might dehydrate them once they're already cut. But what I would try doing is sticking them in a food processor or a really high quality blender like a Blend-Tec or a Vitamix, and see if that can help you get those stalks broken down into smaller pieces. If you have a hard time with that, you could try sanitizing a pair of pruning shears and using those to cut the stalks, because that should work. And if you're having a really hard time still, or your pruning shears are really dull, you could try even using a pair of sanitized loppers or something that are used for pruning tree branches. Okay. And the last question for this week is from Ricardo. He says, if you could lend me a hand, please. What could be a blend of essential oils for sleep aid, and how would I use it? Thanks in advance. Okay, Ricardo, this is a great question. I can't tell you what I would recommend specifically for you without having more information about your health history and any medications you're taking that might be contraindicated with particular essential oils. But I can tell you what I tend to use myself and what has come back in research studies as being beneficial potentially for people who are having trouble sleeping. I will also say that before recommending aromatherapy, usually for my clients, I tend to look at things like what their sleep hygiene looks like, and if there's what the underlying contributors are to someone who is having trouble sleeping. So is there a medical condition that is causing them to have trouble sleeping? Has their doctor found any kind of deficiency that may be contributing to it? Are there pets in the room? Is there just a lot of noise? Or is it that you're having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? There are a lot of questions that I would ask a client about their specific situation before making recommendations, and I might not even recommend aromatherapy at all, depending on what is going on for that person. But since you specifically asked about essential oils, I will say that in studies, essential oils that have been found to be effective for improving sleep quality include things like lavender, which is Lavandula angustifolia typically. It's kind of got a sweeter, a rounder smell than some of the other lavenders do that are more sharp and medicinal in their scent. Things like chamomile, German chamomile, Roman chamomile, both can be effective. Sweet marjoram and sweet orange. And then I have a note also in one of my lessons in our program that lavender has also been found to have a positive impact on serum melatonin levels as well, which can also contribute. So I would tend to look at the science and say, okay, these give me a great foundation to build off of. I also tend to like things that just help me feel really grounded and relaxed. So maybe a vetiver essential oil or something really earthy, so a base note would be good to try. But aside from the approaching it from a science perspective, what I would recommend honestly is just seeing which essential oil aromas help you to feel relaxed and go with those, because if you have one that helps you to feel relaxed and helps you to kind of unwind at the end of a busy day, then that one might work better for you than something that worked in a scientific study, because aromatherapy is a very experiential practice. So what I would say to avoid is anything that makes you feel really stimulated or alert, because those won't have the effect that you're trying to achieve. So those are our questions for this week. I wanted to stick to about 5. A couple of those had extra questions built into them. But if this is a kind of video that you would like to see me make more of in the future, please feel free to let me know in the comments below and give this video a thumbs up. If you want to submit a question for a future video, then I have left a link to a Google form where you can do that. Please don't email it to me or I will lose the questions. But if you want me to answer a question, I will be happy to do that in a future video. And so just click on the link in the description below and leave your question through the form there. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.